Hello and welcome to Journey of the Drop, a programme by the World Petroleum Council and ITN Productions. I'm Natasha Kaplinsky.
Coming up, we'll be finding out about the journey of the drop, where oil and gas come from and the many ways they're being used by all of us every day around the world. We'll also find out how we access these precious commodities and see new technologies which are helping to do that in the most sustainable way. But first, how did it all begin? Billions of years ago, the Earth's ocean teemed with marine life. When these small organisms sank to the sea floor, the lack of oxygen transformed them into an organic compound called kerogen. Time, pressure, and extreme temperatures then reformed this collection of carbon and hydrogen atoms into a drop of oil. As we follow that drop on its journey, it joins trillions of others, forming vast reservoirs beneath the Earth's surface, encased by rock and awaiting discovery. Mankind began seeking out that drop more than a century ago. And today, some of the planet's brightest minds and most advanced technologies are searching for that drop, scanning oceans and deserts and everywhere in between. Whether the drop exists in a conventional or non-conventional deposit, increasingly efficient extraction techniques are employed to bring it to the surface. There, the drop is refined into petroleum products. They allow that drop to power our factories, build our streets, fashion our clothes, develop our fertilizers, our medicines, our electronics, and all of our plastic goods. It fuels the cars we drive, the trains we take, the ships we use, the planes we fly. The drop heats our water, it cooks our meals, it lights our homes. And so a drop that's derived from ancient life plays an integral part in our modern lives.
People only think about us and think about what we do when they fill up their car with petrol. I think people don't realise the benefit to society of everything that we do, or the things in everyday life that they use, which come from fossil fuels. And it's not just fuel for our cars, it's producing electricity, it's producing polymers, plastics, pharmaceuticals, cosmetics.
In Belgrade, members of the World Petroleum Council, or WPC, have been discussing the future role of petroleum in the world's energy mix. WPC members include public and private companies, as well as governments. All of them recognise the multiple challenges that must be met to build a sustainable future. Energy needs and use in different regions will transform as the world's population grows, especially in countries like India and China.
There are vast increases in renewable energy, but we also need everything. Because we have so many people and we need so much energy, we need a mix. So oil and gas will still be there, but our challenge is to produce what people want in a sustainable manner.
Of course, there will be new energy sources helping out filling that gap. That includes solar, wind, nuclear as well, and hydro. But oil and gas are there to also for the long term.
I expect that there will be big changes, huge changes. But there is one criteria which remains, I think, stable, that the world will be supplied by energy on the basis of an energy mix.
The diversity in energy resources is one of the reasons that Javelin Global Commodities is changing the way it does business. Javelin is a leading marketing and trading firm of thermal coal globally, but it's expanding into other commodity areas, including oil and natural gas liquids.
These commodities all move together. So if you just trade one commodity by themselves, you're probably missing some information about what's going on another commodity which could impact the price of the other. So there is some high correlation between different energy commodities today. So I think it's important to be involved in that. A lot of the expertise that we've developed within our coal industry are very, very adaptable into other industries. We recently set up Javelin Hydrocarbon, which is to get involved in the refined oil and natural gas business as that competes directly with coal, for example.
We know there has to be significant investment in the industry for the future. We also know, after the climate change talks in Paris, that we have to do a lot more to produce a more sustainable fuel. We have to produce less greenhouse gas emissions. We need to do things more efficiently. We need to move into refineries of the future, produce biofuels, and get involved with more renewables.
This scheme is a good example of that. In Oman's desert, these workers are constructing what will be one of the world's largest solar plants. It'll consist of 36 glass houses spread across 3 square kilometres. That's the size of 360 football fields. It's built on an oil field, a collaboration between Glasspoint and Petroleum Development Oman, the country's largest oil and gas company. This offers PDO a clean, renewable alternative.
What was happening traditionally is the oil and gas industry was going for the easy to extract oil, and that's what we've been doing for the last probably 40 years in Oman. And that reservoir of light crude is becoming more scarce and scarce. So we have to look at the other alternatives.
Solar power also gives Oman an opportunity to divert its natural gas elsewhere, for example, to produce electricity. And it could help the country reduce its carbon dioxide emissions by 300,000 tonnes per year. The race is on to limit the rise in the Earth's temperature to 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels. And since the UN climate change conference known as COP21 in Paris in 2015, this commitment is binding on the 195 countries that signed it.
If you put your climate bifocals on, you get a sense that the long-term direction of travel is now set in stone. There is a cap on emissions. The Paris Agreement has a ratchet which will likely tighten over time. So companies are tuning in to that reality that there's a need to recalibrate some business models.
Bank of America Merrill Lynch has carved out a niche in green finance as part of its vision to back sustainable growth globally. It's particularly active in green bonds, where investors lend money to issuers for a fixed period in return for interest.
The beauty of the green bonds that we're working on, which are what we call use of proceeds green bonds, is that they are identical from a credit and a yield standpoint to the investor. So that means all of the regular investors that would normally buy a regular bond from that issuer can buy the green bond, and they do buy the green bond. But we also have this growing groundswell of green investors that specifically want to buy the bond because the proceeds are going to green projects.
It's predicted $70 trillion is needed to finance clean technologies by 2040 to meet global climate change commitments. At the moment, renewables account for 5% of the global energy mix. With heavy investment, it could go up to 19% by 2050. But 80% of our energy will still need to come from other sources.
Gas is really one of the major sources of fuel in many sectors. It's got some real advantages. Firstly, it's a very plentiful resource. People like the IEA estimated independently that there's over 200 years of gas available, which means that it's there for the long-term future. It's a very clean source of energy and highly efficient. Also, interestingly, it's a resource that can be brought on stream relatively quickly.
Over the next century, energy poverty will end for 2 billion people in the developing world. China and India have burned a lot of coal in recent years, but oil and gas could potentially offer cleaner and sustainable solutions to meet rising demand. Royal Dutch Shell has global expertise in gas extraction and supply. Natural gas is the cleanest burning hydrocarbon. It's abundant and versatile, helping meet growing global demand for energy.
Gas has some unique advantages. One, if you deliver gas into a load center by pipe, power by pipe I might call it, you lose all of the inefficiencies of electric transmission. If I talk about the flexibility of gas plants that can stop and start on a dime, they provide the kind of balancing services that a complex energy system of the future would require. So when you think about the environmental consequences, the beneficial operational characteristics of natural gas, it clearly has a substantial role to play in the future energy mix.
It also has considerable social benefits. Here in Gujarat in India, cooking has traditionally been done by burning wood, which is time-consuming and can lead to health problems. In recent years, natural gas usage here has gone from near zero to 25%, providing safe, clean energy and improving people's lives. This lorry in the Netherlands doesn't run on conventional diesel. It's powered instead by liquefied natural gas, or LNG.
The advantages of this are air quality. If you compare heavy fuel oil to liquefied natural gas, there's a very, very big difference in terms of the air quality effect of it. But of course, natural gas is also cleaner from a CO2 perspective. So you produce less carbon, you produce a lot less air pollution, and also you're quieter.
That's because spark-ignited engines used to burn the fuel reduce noise. This is the largest supermarket chain in the Netherlands. 5 years ago, after realising almost a tenth of its delivery time was being lost through drivers stuck in traffic jams, the company decided to invest in a fleet of LNG-powered lorries that could operate around the clock and comply with noise restrictions.
A normal diesel truck has 80 decibel as noise level. 72 is the maximum noise level of an LNG truck now, but in the next future it will be lower than 70, so that's amazing.
Shell LNG is already powering thousands of trucks around the world, and 80 ships too, and those numbers keep on growing. Developing innovative technologies to deliver better, cleaner products drives the industry forward. The Aberdeen City region in Scotland is building on a long history of expertise in oil and gas, whilst capitalising on innovation and new technology to remain a leader in the industry. 20 billion barrels of oil equivalent are still held in the North Sea, so the industry remains a key part of Aberdeen's future. Billions of pounds is being spent on infrastructure here, building roads, a conference centre and a deep-sea port, all to ensure the region remains a world leader in oil and gas. Just a few miles outside of Aberdeen lies West Hill, a kind of Silicon Valley of the oil and gas world, where many businesses associated with the industry have set up.
Over the last 4 decades, we've built up a great deal of expertise and technology. We believe that we can export that around the world. We want to anchor the supply chain here in the Northeast, where that expertise has been built up. And we want to support the supply chain to make sure that they can do business from this area for many, many years to come.
Sem Plastics in Orlando, USA also wants to export its expertise. In this lab, scientists are creating new materials they call X-Mats, which could help revolutionise propellant performance in the oil and gas industry, giving well drillers an alternative to either cheap but heavy sand or light but expensive ceramics.
Some of the higher dollar ceramic-based propellants are high density and they don't stay put. So this material being strong and light, it'll be easier to put into place with their technology, and it makes it better.
This small company's research and development continues and could soon see X-Mat move from the laboratory to energy production wells. Consultancy RPS is also embracing new ways of working, such as using innovative technology like drones to evaluate the best location for a drilling platform or reservoir. Geological data acquired from footage of rock formations, like here in Ireland, is continued into 3D models to evaluate the most viable option. As well as doing technical work for companies, RPS says it can assist with the full life cycle of a venture through project management. Oil and gas are often found in remote, difficult-to-access areas. Safety is key. Exciting new technology being used in the renewables sector could soon have promising applications for oil and gas. Limpet Technology has developed a new generation of height safety systems, which allows technicians to safely transfer between boat and turbine in choppy waters. The potential risks of transferring in high seas can be seen in this mobile phone footage, shot at a wind farm off the coast of North Wales. Usually, transfers aren't allowed when waves are above 1.5 metres. This solution assures safe operation when waves are up to 3 metres high.
And there isn't anything available at the moment in our sector that will enable a technician to get off of a boat in more than 1.5 metre swell. So it's a game changer. It's going to ensure that we can get there quicker, we can get there faster, we become more efficient, and generally, I just think a massive benefit to the offshore sector.
One of the benefits of the technology is that it allows the offshore wind energy industry to lower its operating costs by making the turbines accessible for 80% of the year instead of just 50%. That has potential for offshore oil rigs too. World Petroleum Council members take their responsibility seriously too. Petroleum Development Oman spends more than $1 million a year training its drivers, who are all Omani. Ahmed is among 8,000 employees and more than 45,000 contractors who work for PDO. Its operation area, or concession, is about 90,000 square kilometres. That's 1/3 of Oman. And the vast, inhospitable desert poses huge logistical challenges.
To give you a feel of dimensions and logistical challenge, every day our staff and our contractors, as they access wells, facilities, pipelines, have to travel the equivalent to the moon and back every single workday.
There is some risks in the desert routes, like driving while storm dust, also that flying stones from the other vehicles, the other road users who unsafe driving, who speeding, overspeeding, you can see who overtaking the vehicles in the wrong locations.
The oil and gas industry has also learnt from the past and has developed better responses for when things do go wrong. Oil spills can be devastating both to human and marine life. The impact can be felt for generations. Southampton-based Oil Spill Response Limited is an industry-funded company which responds to spills right across the globe. It's the largest organisation of its kind.
Well, obviously oil spills are very damaging to the environment, and what Oil Spill Response does is get there as quickly as possible to mitigate the worst impacts and ensure that it's done in the right way so that the environment can fully recover from that oil spill in the best possible way. And to do that, we help people prepare for it in advance by writing plans, exercising, training people and providing experts, and these things are exercised on a regular basis so that if it happens, we can respond.
OSRL helps oil companies respond to spills from its bases around the world. It's always on standby to be shipped anywhere within a matter of hours. OSRL staff also train people from industry bodies, governments, and the oil companies themselves. After the Macondo incident in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010, the oil industry worked together to design and manufacture equipment that reduces the response times to gain control of a well. In this way, the industry can mitigate against the kind of environmental damage seen in the past. Responsible operations and good governance are key for the oil and gas industry to get a social licence to operate. Sproul is a consulting firm that ensures standards of governance in the industry. It's helping to put in place fair, competitive and transparent regulatory systems for energy markets across the world.
COP21 and all of the climate change policy that we've seen have made governments and regulators think about how they can do their work differently and strengthen their regulatory framework. And so whether we're talking about countries in the Middle East, South America, certainly in Africa, even in Canada, regulators are changing the way that they do work. It's important for communities to be involved, and it's important for people to know that they can trust regulators. And so the work that we provide is advice on how to think about how that work can be done better.
We try to do our bit at the World Petroleum Council. We're a charity in the UK because all the money that we make from our activities goes into educational legacies. And that varies from sending people through universities at graduate level right down to some projects, for example, we have in Pakistan where we're doing vocational training.
Whether it's through education or technology, the oil and gas industry is looking ahead and adapting, finding innovative solutions to meet demand sustainably and future-proofing a sector that touches every part of our lives.